Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. If you're new to my content, I help people. I'm their guide basically on their healing journey, helping to heal physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And because today is Monday, it's a book club day. And if you are joining us for the very first time, that's fine. You don't actually have to read the book. We just discuss every chapter. If you want to connect and read the book together with us every single Monday at noon Eastern Standard Time, we meet to discuss the chapters. And today, we're talking about the game of life and how to play it. It's a fun little book I wanted to do this summer because the chapters are short, they're sweet, they're to the point, and they're powerful. So if you are joining me live for book club, let me know when you're here. It's good to see you. And we'll dive in a moment. This chapter was all about the law of prosperity. And really this book, if you're not familiar with it, this book is really about the spiritual laws that govern our life. And there are a lot of them. We talked last week about the law of sowing and reaping. So what you put out is what you're going to get back. Makes sense. Hey Tina, good to see you. I know you've been loving this book. And this week we're talking all about the law of prosperity. And really the principle is that there is a supply for every demand. Hey Karen, good to see you over there. And so let's just get into it. And you know, when you join me, if you're coming in later, just let me know that you've gotten here. But to start off, she really talks about how God is man's supply. And she says, you know, if you look around, everything you need is there. And if you look at, right, like, well, what's created this, you know, God, spirit, the universe, whatever your thoughts are, but you look at nature, right? And if you look at nature, and every single morning when I walk, this is what I think about. It's like, there's abundance in nature. Like if I'm just looking at the grass in front of my house right now, like there is an abundance of grass. I could never count the number of blades of grass, right? There's so much. And what is nature wanting to do? Tina, Karen, you know, you guys have been through Inner Management Mastery. I talk about this all the time. We come here, and nature shows it most beautifully. We come here to expand, to express, to explore, to experience, right? And if you look at nature, that's what it's doing. It's constantly expanding. It's constantly expressing. And it is just, there's an abundant supply. You know, we have, I think like something like 60 or 70 fruit trees that we've planted. Now they're not all fruiting, thank goodness. But our neighbor has like a plum tree, not very big, has more plums than she could ever desire to eat. Like it just constantly is giving plums. Lemon trees, constantly giving lemon trees. Like there's an abundance. Okay, there is a supply there for you for every demand. And so what it says here is that man can release through his spoken word all that belongs to him by divine right. He must, however, hey Charlotte, he must, however, have perfect faith in his spoken word. So what you ask for, you can get if you have faith in what you're saying is really the principle here. You know, and the problem is our mind, right? Because our mind jumps in and says, oh, it's impossible, or I need to see it, and then I'll believe it. And like, well, I can't see how this could happen. And so, you know, it doubts. And if you doubt, it's not going to happen. So it's kind of this interesting interplay, which she really gets into in this chapter. She continues to say that we know now that words and thoughts are a tremendous vibratory force, even molding man's body and affairs. We talk about this a lot in mastery, right? What manifests in the physical body. So if you think about somebody, for example, that is like, has their shoulders tucked a lot and kind of like walks through life like this. If you're in that hunched over posture, very likely you are somebody, well, let me ask you, do you think you're somebody, if you're in this posture, that has the thoughts of confidence or feels maybe insecure? Do you think that they are happy or anxious, right? We see literally manifested in the physical body when you create, we call them some scars. That's why I teach you in mastery. But as you create these thought patterns and emotions, they create grooves. Yeah, exactly, Tina, insecure. And these grooves, these patterns of beings eventually literally come into a physical form and can show up in your body. It's true. And she's saying the same thing. She says words and thoughts have a vibratory force and will mold even the body and your affairs. It will mold how you show up. Right? In Mastery, I taught you about the sunglasses. Because we have these ways of thinking, these ways of being, that kind of we think are permanent. It's like we have these sunglasses on our face that we don't even know that we're wearing. And so we're looking at life and we're actually seeing it molded by this lens of our thought patterns, of our emotions. And it changes the way we show up. It changes the way that we see things, right? Like 10 people could see the same situation and 10 people could have different responses to it, different interpretations of it, because they're seeing it through a lens, right? All right. There is a supply for every demand. This is the law of really prosperity that she gets into. And if one asks for success but prepares for failure, he will get the situation he has prepared for. All right, so you have to have faith. She talks about, I think in here, well, there are a lot of different stories that she talks about, but, talking about the person that like needed money, and she was freaking out. She needed $3,000. And so she calls, Florence and says, what do I do? I need you to treat me for this, blah, blah, blah. And she says, act as if you have it, right? And the woman says, well, come to lunch with me. I'm kind of losing face. So they go to lunch and she says, like, don't skimp. Act as if the money is here. Act as if you have the money. And boom, it will come. And so they have this great lunch, and it turns out that this woman's like relative comes for a visit and ends up offering, to give her money and gives her the exact amount that she needs. All right, so you never know how it's going to unfold, but if you have the faith, this is really the principle here. If you have the faith, it will happen. Do you guys know anybody that acts like this all the time? That they're just like, oh, I know everything will be provided for me, and they just trust and it all unfolds? There are people I know that like they just have this faith. I try to have it. It's like the goal that I'm working towards, but I like still am working with this silly mind of mine that will jump in and will doubt. Or I'll find, oh, there's a bit of insecurity, or oh, there's a bit of this or a bit of that. But it's amazing, to witness people that just are fully on board. Like there's not a doubt in their mind, and that's the key. Like you can't have a doubt. and this is where you have to learn to master your mind, and you have to shut your mind off, and you have to be able to, cancel a thought that is not going to get you where you want it to go. So having faith is key. But if you prepare for failure, then you're going to have failure. She says, men must prepare for the things that he has asked for when there isn't the slightest sign of it in sight. So another story that she shares, I love the number of stories that she shares in this book, but one of the stories that she shared, right, is this lady that needs an apartment, but she's in New York City. There's like 200 people applying to every single apartment. It's like, there's no way in hell, you're going to get it. And this woman is like convinced. She's like, I'm a superhero. I work with the divine. I know that everything exists in the fourth dimension first, and then will manifest in this plane. And so I'm working in that fourth dimension. I know I'm going to bring it into being. And so she says, well, I'm gonna get the blankets. I'm gonna get all of the stuff that I want in my apartment. I'm going to demonstrate faith that the apartment will be mine. And so I'm going to prepare for all of it as if it's here, even though it looks like there's no way in hell I'm going to get this apartment. And she says, in this story, she knew there was a supply for every demand, and she was unconditioned because she was working on the spiritual plane and was one with God, who is the majority. But she talks about how, and have you ever tried to do this, but then what happens? Like the freaking ego mind, that little devil pops in and says, she calls it the tempter, and has these adverse thoughts. The reasoning mind says, well, this isn't logical. Right? You're just going to buy these blankets and then you're going to have to put them in storage because you're not going to get the apartment. This is ridiculous. But that means you're preparing for not getting it, so you won't get it. But if you get the blankets and you believe, hey, Lou, and you believe you will have the blankets, then boom, the blankets are going to be like yours, as is the apartment. And so this woman says, I felt the tempter coming in and I refused to listen to it. So do you have any experiences with this? Like, does anyone reading this, are you like, wow, this time in my life I did it and it actually happened? I can share with you, I'd love to hear stories. And I know some of you said Telegram's like not working. You guys can't write on it. What I figured out, I didn't know Telegram when I set up the channel, so sorry. But only I can post, but you guys can reply to the post. And so you can't put your own post in, but you can reply to a post. So if you have stories and you want to share, just reply to the post for this week. Or put it here if you have the time to type it in here. Or just say, yes, I've experienced it or something like that. But, I we're talking like 7, 8 years ago, I very much wanted a dog. Like, I knew I wanted a dog. I was single. I had been single for a very long time. I was like just wanting to just spend time with Danielle, get Danielle straight. And I was like, I would really love to have a dog. Like, a dog would be really, really nice. But I also was working several jobs, and I was like, it doesn't really make sense. But like, I'm going to trust that if it's meant to be, it will be. And I got you guys remember Beanie Babies? Like, does anyone put a 1 in the chat if you remember Beanie Babies? Growing up, I mean, for you guys that are on this call, maybe you got them for your kids. My live stream is experiencing connection issues. Why is my internet having so much trouble these days? Can you all hear me? Yes, Karen, you remember Beanie Babies. Okay. Facebook, sorry. Everybody, sorry if this, for some reason, my internet's being funny, but I don't know. It says it's strong, so I don't know what to do about that. Okay, so back to the story about Beanie Babies. I'm glad at least one of you remembers Beanie Babies. And so I had a bunch of Beanie Babies. My parents were moving out. They were getting rid of all the ones that they'd kept from when I was a kid. And there was this one that was a dog. And I was like, I want to keep that. This is going to be like, this is the dog that I'm going to manifest. Like, I want a dog. And so I put this little Beanie Baby in my car. I had a Subaru Outback at the time, and it had this like little nook in between, like on the dash, but like in between the driver's seat and the passenger seat. And so I put this little Beanie Baby there, and every single time I got in my car to drive anywhere, I looked at it and I visualized and I saw, the dog. And I was thinking about how happy I would be and the things we would do together, and like acting as if the dog's in my back seat and whatever. So I was just demonstrating very, 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 very clearly that I wanted a dog. And I remember one day, it's so funny because I actually I had said to my reasoning mind came in there. I know, I'm sorry, Tina, the connection is crap. And it's on my end, I think, and I don't know what's going on, and I don't know how to fix it. It's going strong on Instagram. So if Facebook's not working, the Instagram stream is working really well. So anyway, I actually took the dog and I said, okay, my logical mind said, like, this isn't meant to be now. Like, it doesn't make sense for me to have a dog now. And so I brought the dog inside and I put it on a bookcase. And then I went, for my 30th birthday, I went for a bike ride up in the Ocala National Forest. And I was with a friend of mine at the time. And I came around the corner, and my friend was off of his bike, coaxing this little puppy out of the woods. And this puppy, I kid you not, had the exact ears. Like, I had never seen a dog with this kind of ears, but this dog's ears were the exact ears that this Beanie Baby dog had. And the Beanie Baby had been like brindle, so it's like, brown with the blackish kind of brown and black spots. And I looked at my friend and I was like, oh my gosh. And he said, well, let's get the dog home. So I said, well, I'll stay with the dog. You go get the car. And as I'm sitting with this dog just like, I fell in love with it. Like, he comes over to me, he's licking my face. He's so cute. And I'm like, oh, but it probably belongs to somebody. So we try to go to the Humane Society to see if someone's like lost a dog. We look at all these postings online. No one owns this dog. And so I take the dog home and I'm like, oh my God. But in my logical mind, right? Oh, I can't have a dog. This is too much. And anyway, long story short, this is how I ended up with Bodhi. And for me, yeah, I know, Charlotte, sorry you lost me. I had bad internet there for a minute, but hopefully we're back. I was just sharing a story about manifesting and the power of faith. So I had this Beanie Baby on my dashboard. I was clear as day that I wanted a dog. I pictured myself with a dog. And finally, one day, as I was just out living my life biking, I came across the dog in the forest, and and he looked very, very, very much like this Beanie Baby. I wish I had kept the Beanie Baby and I could show you, but that's the story of how I found Bodhi. And now the last 6 years, I've had a dog, and I've had Bodhi in my life. So I've seen this happen. I know that many of you have seen this happen as well. And these stories about when you actually have faith and you don't listen to all the craziness in the mind, you can draw in whatever you want. Like, you're that powerful. All right, so we're on page 17 now. Getting into the spiritual swing of things is no easy matter for the average person. The adverse thoughts of doubt and fear surge from the subconscious. This explains why so often it is darkest before the dawn. There is typically a big demonstration that usually is preceded by tormenting thoughts. So I see this in business all the time, and put a 1 in the chat if you've ever experienced this, where you want something. So maybe you're a ASEA business. I know many of you have an ASEA business, or you're entrepreneurs in other ways. Maybe you're saying you want something in your business. You're very clear on it. Or maybe when you started your business, it's still breaking up. God, good lordy, guys. Maybe jump to Instagram. Do you have Instagram? I don't know why it's breaking up. It says I have a strong network. Let me jump to another network. Let me see what happens. No idea what it's going to do to this feed over on Facebook when I get offline and come back, if it will actually stay. Okay. Am I back? Can you hear me? All right. They probably got kicked off, but now I'm on new internet, so hopefully this internet works. So what I was saying is that, typically you're like tested. I think it's a test. Let's say you want something. You've got clear, I'm starting to see a business. I want $1,000 a month. This is what I want. This is what I want to create. I've watched it time and time again. I mean, I've coached hundreds of people. And what I see... Okay, perfect. It's good on Instagram. Thanks, Karen. So what I see happen is that typically, literally within a month of people making this declaration, like life happens, like stuff hits the fan. Sickness, an accident, a family member issue, loss of a job, like something big happens. And this is where most people fall down, because they have this challenge and they're like, oh my gosh, they start to have doubts. They start to have fears. They start to think, well, this isn't going to work, or it's not going to work for me, or now my energy has to go over here. And I have always seen the people that look at that, square at it and say, I don't care if this is happening, I'm going to make this business happen anyway, are the ones that then rocket to success. It's like they get over this first hump, they get over the challenge. It was their test. I believe their faith was being tested. How badly do you want this? Do you truly want this? And that's the test that I would say 90% of people fail it, because they go, and they get pulled back and the mind takes over and fear takes over and doubt takes over. And so they never actually make it. But those that look at it and they know, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? I always have this behind me, because it reminds me that, look, we swing between dark and light. It's just the law of how things operate here. And in the darkness, right when it's the most dark, right, that's when, right before we start moving into the light. Okay, and so you just have to remember this. And this is exactly what she's saying here. It's that faith that you have to keep. Okay. Every great work, every big accomplishment has been brought into manifestation through holding to the vision, and often just before the big achievement comes, apparent failure and discouragement occurs. Right? Has this happened? Where it just looks like, well, everything's falling apart. And I have found there needs to be a breakdown typically in order for a breakthrough, because sometimes old paradigms need to release, old thought patterns need to release, old relationships need to be let go of. This old way of being has to shatter so that the new thing that you're asking for has room to move in. Does that make sense? And a lot of times people freak out because everything is falling apart, but really it's falling apart so that it can be put together in a different way for the thing you're asking for. But if you don't know that that's the flow, the typical person will freak out. And she's saying, no. If one knows spiritual law, then they're undisturbed by appearances and rejoice while he is yet in captivity. That is, he holds to his vision and gives thanks that the end is accomplished and that he has received. Because everything happens at the fourth dimension before it comes into the third dimension. So we have to keep it in faith, in our minds, before it manifests here in the 3D world. Is this making sense? Like, high five me if it's making sense. I know I lost everybody over on Facebook because the internet has been silly, but hopefully they can catch the replay over here on Instagram. But is this making sense, guys? Because this is nuanced, and I think it's where most people let their mind get the best of them. And it can be tricky, but this is the stuff that, like, you have to, like, see what fear is. Remember, the ego mind runs on this little binary: seek pleasure, avoid pain. And so the moment that painful things start to come or things start to fall apart, it freaks out But you just got to remember, it's just operating within its own operating system. It doesn't see the bigger picture. It doesn't know that things are breaking down so that, we can really crack open, right? The egg has to break apart so that we can get what's inside of it. A seed has to break down so that its full potential can actually be seen. Like, that's the key. Well, hey, Angela. Good to see you. You gave me an actual high five. I love it. All right. This is kind of wrapping up the chapter. So, in this instance, the man could never have demonstrated alone. He needed someone to help him hold on to the vision. This is what one man can do for another. So this was the story about the guy who needed a loan and the bank had said no to him, and it was like, the very last moment that he could get a loan, and she tells him, no, have faith, go back, you can do it, you can get the loan, go back to the store, blah, 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 back to the bank. And he says, well, the bank's going to close, it's Saturday, it's going to close at noon, I can't get there at least until 10. And she says, have faith, just go back, and so he does. His train ends up being really late. He arrives 15 minutes before it closes, but he walks in and he very calmly says, like, I'm here for the loan. And they give him the loan. And she says, in this scenario, this man, because he was so wrapped up in his own affairs and so stressed out about the timeline that things had to happen in, she says, he could never have demonstrated pure faith on his own. Sometimes we have to rely on other people. I always tell people in my business that I mentor, borrow my belief. Like, I believe in you. I see the potential within you. I know what you're capable of. I don't have all the BS that's in your mind. I don't have it. I just see pure potential. I see a divine light in you that can achieve whatever it wants. And so I speak to that. And I tell people, borrow my faith until you have it yourself. Until you believe in yourself in the way that I believe in you. Guys, that's what we can do for one another. Just remind one another of the power within. Remind everybody of the fourth dimension, of the way that things actually manifest in this world, of these spiritual laws, because we get so wrapped up in our own BS and our own problems and circumstances that sometimes we need someone else to pull us out, to remind us, to make us think bigger, to pull us back. That's why in Mastery, right, I've taught all of you the breath techniques to pull yourself back out of your mind. Yoga Nidra to help you continue to maintain this space of being in the witness, because that's really your powerful place. He says, if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. This is a quote from Jesus. She talks a lot about Jesus. In the Bible, she quotes it often, but she's basically saying it's much easier to demonstrate for someone else than for oneself. So a person should not hesitate to ask for help. And if they feel themselves wavering, no man can fail if some one person sees him successful. So if someone else can help hold the vision, right? Like, how many times have you heard a successful person say, well, really, it was my wife that believed in me, or it was my parents, or it was my children, or it was my husband, right? It was their faith that kept me going, especially in my darkest moments, because every successful person has had a very dark moment, okay, where they're doubting everything. And you just need someone to go, why are you even doubting? Like, you've got this, I don't know how it's going to work out, but have faith, it'll work out. And that's what we're here for, for one another. I would say anybody that's in this book club, we're certainly there for one another to remind and to connect. And that's why I do this book club, is to remind and connect and remind you every single Monday that there's more here, and to continue to have you to reconnect with it. All right. So these chapters are short and sweet. I really like them. So the next one is the power of the word. This starts on page 23. And it just goes to page 31. So it's, again, short and sweet, but I want to spend a lot of time on each one to make sure that we really get it. And again, if you've got stories, things you want to share when you've had faith, when you've demonstrated faith, or someone has helped demonstrate faith for you. I mean, I know with my success in my ASEA business, it was because there were other people saying to me, Danielle, I believe in you. Danielle, I see it with you. I remember someone said, Danielle, you're like a baby dragon. And one day, like, you're going to breathe fire. Like, I see it, and I just borrowed that because I didn't believe it. I had no confidence in myself, but I borrowed that belief, and I started to step into that more and more and more and more. And people saying to me, well, you've got this. I see it within you. Guys, we all got it. We all have that divine light sitting inside of us waiting to come out. It's just got the BS of our own mind in the way. But if you get around people that to speak to your light, they only see your light, they just continue to nurture that, that's what we can do for one another. So I would encourage you, speak to that in others and only see that. Don't listen to their BS. If it starts to come, just stop it. I tell people, you got 30 seconds to complain around me, and then we're switching it. We're going to find the lesson in what you needed to learn, and we're going to move forward from it. Because if you just ruminate, it's just a waste of time. All right. So my apologies for the internet. I'll try and get it figured out. I had an issue with my internet on Saturday also, which it's just not normal. So apologies. I think it was clear on Instagram. I have a recording also if you need it. But lots of love. Have a wonderful week. Support one another. And I will see all of you next week or in our Telegram chatting. All right. Lots of love. Bye, everybody.